Top 12 Horror Made-for-TV Movies, a must-watch list for every horror fan. There had been a gradual change in the television landscape through the 70s and 80s. This prompted numerous TV movies to find their way to the audiences, and horror flicks were no exception. However, despite the popularity of such movies, there were certain drawbacks that gave these films a bad reputation. Firstly, the budget for TV movies could never match up to the ones with high production values. Secondly, strict censoring and random commercial breaks sometimes ruin the mood for the viewer. Even with such handicaps, TV movies flourished, and these actually became an option for the viewers to stay home and get entertained. At times, these movies even starred mainstream actors, and ever since Dan Curtis showed the way with his gothic soap opera Dark Shadows, horror became a mainstay of TV flicks. In this video, we have grouped together a list of 12 such made-for-TV flicks that can give the mainstream movies a run for their money.
Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
Trilogy of Terror, 1975. This horror anthology features 3 stories, all of which star Karen Black in the lead role. It was directed by Dan Curtis, the pioneer in bringing horror to television with his show Dark Shadows. In the first story, a college student is smitten by his English teacher, Julie, and asks her out on a date. He spikes her drink and photographs her in inappropriate situations. However, his plans at blackmailing Julie fail when he learns that it was Julie's plan the entire time and that he is a mere victim to spice up her life. The second story is about a lady with multiple personality disorder who developed an alternative personality to cope with her horrifying reality. The last story is about a woman who struggles with her overbearing mother. When she brings home a wooden Zuni doll, things take a nightmarish turn. This movie is a fine instance of great 70s TV horror and is often hailed as one of the best horror flicks made for television. While the first 2 stories weren't exactly jaw-dropping, the third one will certainly make you sit up in your seats. The Zuni fetish doll was absolutely horrifying with its razor-sharp teeth and the little spear. It is easily among the scariest dolls in the history of horror flicks and makes the movie worth watching. The maker spent over $100,000 to get the doll made, and back in the day, this amount wasn't peanuts. This fearsome doll makes Chucky look like some kind of child's play. Karen Black is marvelous as the lead actress, and there's something about her that makes her perfectly suited to the horror genre. This creepy journey will make sure that you sleep with your lights on and throw any dolls in the house in the garbage bin.
Why did you tell? And you know what happens to people who tell, don't you?
But I didn't. I just warned him, that's all.
Yes, you don't.
Don't Be Afraid of the Dark, 1973. Sally moves in with her husband to their family house, which is an old 2-story Victorian mansion. She finds a locked room in the house, and upon opening it, strange things start to happen. She feels the presence of tiny demon-like creatures, while her husband feels that she's gone crazy. In the middle of her strained relationship with her husband, she must also grasp the horrors of the house, where these little demons are determined to make her one of their own. For many who grew up in the 70s, this movie has been a childhood trauma inducer. It aired on the ABC network as the movie of the week, and the director John Newland surprised the audience with his work. This simple but effective horror film became a cult classic, and the 2010 theatrical remake wasn't even a pale shadow of this masterpiece. The movie is pretty atmospheric, and with brilliant use of light and shadows, the cinematographer pulls off a haunting ambience. Once Sally begins to hear her name being whispered in the middle of the night, you will get a shiver down your spine. The pint-sized demons with their conical heads might not be the most intimidating, but the tension in the air will do the trick for you. It plays with one of the basic fears of our minds, the fear of the unknown. This film is not to be watched alone, especially if you are faint-hearted. Dark Night of the Scarecrow, 1981. Bubba is a mentally challenged man who befriends a young lady named Marley Williams. The townspeople are skeptical of their friendship, and when they find Marley unconscious at a doctor's office, they assume the worst. They wrongfully hold Bubba guilty and kill him as a display of their vigilante justice. A few days later, one of the townspeople finds a strange scarecrow in the fields, resembling the one where they had hidden Bubba before. Is Bubba back from the dead to get his revenge on those who murdered him? Dark Night of the Scarecrow was initially supposed to be an independent movie, but CBS managed to grab the deal for a television slot. Even with the dark subject matter, this film was almost unchanged for television and retained the nail-biting narrative. Larry Drake, a familiar face in the horror movies, played the role of the protagonist, and did a fabulous job. The director, Frank DeFelitta, is the author of novels like Audrey Rose, and he brings his expertise to the table with a clever storyline. The unforgettably chilling musical score enhances the viewing experience. The Scarecrow is well crafted and will give you nightmares for days to come. Even without extreme violence or gore, the film manages to drive home a point. Today, almost 3 decades later, the movie remains fresh as ever and can be the perfect midnight horror binge for you. Salem's Lot, 1979. A successful novelist, Ben Mears, comes back to his peaceful hometown to write a story on the notorious Marston House, which he believes is the residence of evil forces. There seems to be something strange about the new tenants in the house, and when people start dying one after another, Ben realizes that one of them might be a vampire. It seems like a terrible secret of the town is about to unleash itself, and it's up to Ben to stop the evil forces from ruining his city. The rights of this novel by Stephen King were acquired by Warner Brothers, but the works with the screenplay did not work out. Eventually, it was headed for a television release as a miniseries directed by Tobe Hooper, the man who created the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The pervading atmosphere of the film pays tribute to the likes of Psycho and Nosferatu. There is a foreboding creepiness in the tale that sucks you in long before the real horror unfolds. There are some terrifying moments, such as when Marjorie Glick rises from the dead. The scene with Ralphie Glick at the window remains one of the most iconic moments in horror TV movies. The film boasts a strong cast with the likes of David Soul, Lance Kerwin, and James Mason in key roles. The only downside would be the somewhat campy effects, but you can't expect too much from a low-budget conception. If you have a taste for vampire movies, this one will be a treat for you, especially if you want to watch it alone on a rainy night. The Woman in Black, 1989. A young solicitor is sent to a quiet seaside town to settle the estate of an older woman who passes away. When he arrives, he finds that the inhabitants of the town choose to stay away from her house and speak nothing about her life. He keeps seeing a woman in black attires, but no one seems to acknowledge his sightings. However, he ignores the cryptic warnings and heads to the house, only to discover the horrible history. Now he's part of a terrifying legacy that has no escape. This atmospheric novel by Susan Hill finds a great outlet in this movie that stays true to the source material. The narrative takes care to spend adequate time in adding to the uneasiness of the viewer. As the young solicitor goes around the town getting strange receptions, you can't help but wonder about the horrors that are about to unfold. The sets are perfect, and the house chosen for the filming is fittingly eerie. In the absence of big-budget CGI effects, this movie manages to impress with its old-school storytelling. It's even superior to the more recent Daniel Radcliffe film adaptation of the same. The evil forces here is as scary as it gets. You get the experience of a character who wants people to be as unhappy as she is, and once the little hints of the woman's origin spill out one by one, you will shudder in fear. This shocking film deserves more appreciation than it received because the sheer terror in this is more than some of the so-called popular big-budget horror flicks. Threads, 1984. Things are all sweet and rosy for a young couple who get married after an unexpected pregnancy. Jimmy and Ruth are about to lead a life of joy when war breaks out between the United States and the Soviet Union. A surprise nuclear attack destroys a NATO base that's only 20 miles from their home in Sheffield, England. There is absolute chaos in the town as the fallout spreads, and in the panic, Ruth and Jimmy are separated. Ruth must struggle in these trying conditions to survive the post-apocalyptic landscape in harsh conditions. We have all wondered about the horrors of a nuclear war, and this film literally serves us our worst ideas. It's one of the most graphic representations of such a situation, and from the moment when the mushroom cloud starts to rise at the distance, you know that things are about to get nasty. The scenes of death, destruction, and paranoia are a bit too realistic for comfort. The movie doesn't stop at that, and even explores the long-term effects of such a nuclear conflict. The sense of helplessness prevails through much of the movie as we see that the authorities are unable to cope with the situation. The dated production values do not affect the disturbing narrative, and you'll have no time to focus on technical flaws with such an exciting plot unfolding before you. Overall, this is a beat-down, bleak, depressing, and utterly horrifying movie that will have a devastating effect on your mind for days to come. Horror doesn't always emanate from ghosts and vampires. It, 1990. Who can ever forget the iconic child-killing clown Pennywise? Time and time again, this remarkable creation by Stephen King has been adapted, but few have been as creepy and successful as the 1990 version that was presented as a TV movie. It follows a group of social outcasts who fight the evil demonic force that takes the form of a clown. It feeds on the worst fears of the children and kills them. This determined group defeats the demonic clown, but when it resurfaces after 30 years, they must come back to and finish it off one more time. When it comes to being a perfect adaptation of the source material, this version of It falls short. Some crucial bits are left out due to the time constraints of television. However, the movie is still a brilliant take on a spine-chilling story. It gets better with the mesmerizing performance of Tim Curry as Pennywise, who perfects everything from the evil laughter of the clown to the scary mannerisms. His menacing snarl will stay with you long after the movie ends. Even with a 3-hour runtime, it flows at a brisk pace with all the twists and turns to keep you glued to your seats. Made out like a 2-part miniseries, this movie shines brighter in the first part with the children cast. It's one of those instances when a Stephen King adaptation acts out well on screen and is a must-watch for all horror enthusiasts. Personally, we feel that this is in many ways better than the recent version of the movie. Citizen X, 1995. This movie is based on a true story of a Russian serial killer who killed over 50 innocent victims across many years. As a detective tries his best to stop him, the bureaucracy in communist Russia proves to be a major hindrance. Nobody's ready to believe that a member of the Communist Party might be a sadistic killer. The detective is also backed by his senior and psychiatrist who tries to guide him to the identity of the mystery killer. Sometimes you watch a TV movie and feel like it's a bit too good for television. We had a similar feeling after watching this brilliant masterpiece about the serial killer Andrei Chikatilo. The cast packs quite a punch with veteran actor Donald Sutherland playing the cynical superior officer and Stephen Ray as the investigator. This documentary drama aired on HBO network and immediately had everyone's attention with an intriguing concept. The dark and bleak theme of the movie is supported by the portrayal of a corrupt and incompetent system that works against any kind of success. This film is not just about the hunt for the man, but also explores the emotional journey of the investigating officer and finds himself all alone in the battle. If movies on serial killers excite you, then you are in for a real treat with this one.
Stay. Suzanne must still be in the bedroom.
But where?
There's a camera range, right?
Ghostwatch, 1992. The movie takes off as 4 respected BBC presenters and a camera crew make their way to discover the truth behind one of the most haunted houses in England. They're expecting nothing more than a hoax and thinking it would be a lighthearted show. However, things take a ghastly turn when the real horrors of the house are unleashed. Just when you think things are in total control, you witness the might of paranormal forces. Halloween Night in 1992 was made all the more special with this remarkable presentation from BBC. Inspired by the infamous Enfield poltergeist, the narrative takes the form of a documentary that led people into thinking that these were real incidents. The people watching fell for the hoax and were shocked by the turn of events. It sent people into such a panic mode that as many as 30,000 calls were made to BBC to inquire about the footage. However, it was just a fictional work, shot intentionally to give a realistic look to it. It's every grueling modern horror cliché like possessions, telekinesis, etc., but it manages to retain the authenticity in every scene. Even after all these years, this film can still give you sleepless nights with such enriching content.
I'd like to report a truck driver that's been endangering my life. Name again? David Mann.
Duel, 1971. Sometimes even the simplest of plots can make for the most exciting movies. Duel is a fine example. It all starts with a businessman who's traveling in his car for an important meeting. However, an old tanker truck seems to be driven by a psychopath, and its sole motive seems to be slamming into his car to kill him. No matter how hard the man tries, he can't seem to shake off this truck that's in a crazy pursuit. This is the debut for the stalwart Steven Spielberg, and also earned him the stature to direct Jaws. It seems to be a fun take on a road rage where the maniac trucker is enraged after the businessman overtakes him. However, things are quickly blown out of proportion, and the viewer will be left in shock as the protagonist avoids some near-death experiences. One of the key aspects of this movie is that we never get to see the truck driver. His identity or purpose remains a mystery for the entire film, and this adds to the tension. It was filmed for ABC Network and showed glimpses of the enormous talent of Spielberg. Dennis Weaver in the lead role is impressive and portrays the panic-stricken protagonist to perfection. The movie shows how plots can progress linearly to such interesting climaxes, and you simply can't miss out on this gem of a movie that made Spielberg into who he is today. Don't Go to Sleep, 1982. A family that recently lost one of their daughters, named Jennifer, in a car crash, move into a house in the countryside. The parents, Laura and Philip, are distraught at the loss, but the two other siblings, Mary and Kevin, know about a deep, dark secret. As it turns out, the family was indirectly responsible for Jennifer's death, and now the spirit is back for revenge. The spirit of Jennifer takes Mary under her influence and exacts her revenge as she picks off the family members one by one. Richard Lang's Don't Go to Sleep was one of the most unsettling horror flicks back in the day. The mercurial plot has a stunning build-up that keeps you on your toes. The suspenseful narrative keeps the audience guessing through the commercial breaks, and there are some creepy scenes that wouldn't let you sleep at night. For instance, the frisbee scene will give you goosebumps, and the pizza cutter running along the banister is pretty terrifying as well. The frightening and eerie narrative does have some cheesy moments, but you can expect them from a TV movie. The spook shocker, in the end, will leave you shell-shocked for sure. Avoid watching this film unless you are a man of steel.
Who are you?
The Haunted, 1991. Moving into a new house is pretty exciting, until you find out that it's haunted. This is precisely what happens when the Smurl family after they move in to their new home on Chase Street. The evil spirits and the demon want to destroy their lives, and they seem helpless until they find the Warren family. Can the Warren family help them get rid of the demonic forces acting in their house? Sometimes, the most hardened horror movie fan buffs find it tough to get scared. This movie is, however, going to keep you awake through the nights, no matter how many horror flicks you might have watched. It's true that the lower budget eliminates the chances of bolstering the effects to match up to the Hollywood blockbusters. However, the thrill in this narrative compensates for such shortcomings adequately. This is apparently a true incident that was dealt with by the famous demonologists Ed and Lorraine Warren. The thought that such things could actually happen to you as well is enough shock for the viewer. The actors do a decent job at playing the terrified inhabitants, and Sally Kirkland and Jeffrey DeMunn are capable in the lead roles. This is an incredible TV-made paranormal story that horror fans shouldn't miss at any cost.
And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.